Rule 7. Risk of collision. A. Every vessel shall use all available means appropriate to the prevailing circumstances and conditions to determine if risk of collision exists. If there is any doubt, such risk shall be deemed to exist. Explanation. Use all available means. When in doubt, assume risk. Meaning, the master and watchkeeping officers must employ every tool and method at their disposal. Visual lookout, hearing, radar if available, AIS if available, VHF radio, automatic identification, etc., depending on conditions, visibility, traffic density, weather, traffic separation schemes, proximity to land, etc. Why? Because the situation at sea can change rapidly, and relying solely on one means, e.g. visual, can lead to missing a dangerous contact, especially in poor visibility, darkness, or congested traffic. Use the compass to check the bearings of approaching vessels. Compare it with the radar bearing. If you have an automatic radar plotting aid, ARPA, you should use the relative vectors for determining risk of collision and true vectors to ascertain the other vessel's actual movement. Practical implication. If you're unsure whether a collision may occur, even if uncertain, you must treat the situation as if a risk exists. That triggers the need to take action under subsequent rules, e.g., give way, stand on, evasive maneuver, etc. B. Proper use shall be made of radar equipment, if fitted and operational, including long-range scanning to obtain early warning of risk of collision and radar plotting or equivalent systematic observation of detected objects. Explanation. Proper use of radar if fitted and operational, meaning, if the vessel carries radar and the radar is functional, you must make proper use of it. That includes long-range scanning to detect distant targets early, radar plotting, i.e. tracking the courses and movements of detected contacts, or systematic observation, regular scans, checking for motion, echo returns, etc. Why? Radar is a powerful sensor, often more reliable than visual lookout, especially in low visibility at night, in fog, over rain, or when vessels are far but closing. Early detection gives more time to assess the risk and plan safe maneuvers. You must be aware of the limitations and use of the ARPA and interpret information displayed correctly. If you are not fitted with an ARPA, you must run a radar plot. Is the target passing ahead or astern? Or is it going to collide? Remember, the primary information you need to answer these questions is relative information. Practical implication. On watch, especially in busy or restricted waters, always have radar active if available. Use appropriate range scales. Perform regular sweeps, record or plot contacts, and combine with visual and other information. Radar data should not be ignored or deprioritized when available. C. Assumptions shall not be made on the basis of scanty information, especially scanty radar information. Explanation. Do not make assumptions on scanty information, meaning you must not rely on incomplete or insufficient data, especially poor radar returns or a single brief echo, as the basis for assuming safety. In other words, you should not assume no risk just because you have limited or uncertain information. Why? Sparse data can be misleading. Small targets, low radar cross-section vessels, debris, poor radar performance, sea clutter, or marginal visibility can mask real collision risks. Assumptions based on limited information may lead to underestimating danger, causing late or inadequate action. Don't trust ARPA to give you an accurate closest point of approach, CPA. Where possible, take at least half a mile off each indication to be safe. If it shows a CPA of half a mile, assume it is collision. Practical implication. If your radar returns are weak, intermittent, or ambiguous, treat the contact as uncertain. Maintain a cautious mindset, perhaps reduce speed, increase lookout, change to smaller radar range for better resolution, and avoid complacency. D. In determining if risk of collision exists, the following considerations shall be among those taken into account. 1. Such risk shall be deemed to exist if the compass bearing of an approaching vessel does not appreciably change. 2. Such risk may sometimes exist even when an appreciable bearing change is evident, particularly when approaching a very large vessel or a tow, or when approaching a vessel at close range. Explanation. When deciding whether there is a risk of collision, you must evaluate a number of factors. Among those, the rule explicitly lists 1. Steady compass bearing equals risk, meaning if an approaching vessel is observed and its compass bearing does not change appreciably over time, i.e., bearing remains nearly constant, then a collision risk shall be deemed to exist. Why? A constant bearing with decreasing range, distance, indicates that both vessels are on a collision course, because neither vessel's relative bearing is shifting, meaning the threat course will likely result in minimum separation at some point, potentially 0. Practical implication. On visual watch or radar, take bearings, hand-bearing compass, Polaris, gyro, or radar. If successive bearings at intervals show no significant change, assume collision risk and prepare to take early action under the rules. Change course, speed, sound signals, etc. 2. Bearing change doesn't always mean safe, meaning even if an appreciable bearing change is evident, i.e. the target's bearing seems to shift, that does not guarantee safety. Risk may still exist, especially when dealing with very large vessels, tows, or vessels at close range. Why? Large vessels or tows have limited maneuverability. Their motion, drift, set, wind, current may produce bearing changes even as they remain on a path that can intersect. Also, at close range, small bearing changes may lead to collision in a short time. In other words, relative motion might mask a dangerous approach. As a target approaches, its change of bearing should speed up significantly. If the change in bearing does not accelerate, treat it as a danger. Practical implication. Do not relax just because you see bearing changes. Evaluate vessel type, speed, CPA, closest point of approach, range reduction, sea room, and maneuverability. For big vessels or tows, always err on the side of caution.